It all began on an unremarkable evening patrol through a quiet suburban neighborhood, a night that would forever alter the lives of those involved. Officer Daniels was making his rounds near Town Square when his keen eyes caught sight of a scruffy stray dog lingering around the busy square. The animal's disheveled appearance and persistent barking, which disturbed the usually calm atmosphere, immediately caught Daniels' attention. To him, stray dogs were little more than nuisances, sources of trouble that sometimes upset the peace of his community. With that mindset firmly in place, Daniels reached for his pepper spray, determined to shoo the creature away and restore order. In an instant that would leave a lasting impression on him, the moment the fine mist hit the dog's face, the expected reaction did not occur. Instead of growling or lunging, the dog let out a startled yelp and bolted in the direction of a man seated in a wheelchair nearby. Intrigued and perplexed, Daniels hesitated for just a moment before deciding to follow the unfolding scene. The stray, now revealed as far more than a mere nuisance, dashed across the pavement and reached the wheelchair with an urgency that belied its injured state. There, under the gentle glow of the setting sun, the man cradled the animal as if it were his most cherished friend. The dog pressed its head softly into the man's lap. Its tail, though stiff from distress, still managed a tentative wag. The man's hands moved with practiced tenderness as he dabbed at the dog's face with a cloth, murmuring soothing words that floated on the cool evening breeze. In that quiet moment, the connection between the man and the animal was palpable, a bond formed not of convenience but of deep need and compassion. "Is this your dog?" Daniels called out cautiously as he approached, his voice now laced with concern rather than authority. The man slowly raised his eyes, their depths shadowed with both sorrow and determination. "Yes," he replied in a trembling tone. "This is Scout. He isn't a stray. He's my service dog." In that instant, Daniels felt a rush of regret and disbelief. The very act he had intended as a simple enforcement of routine had now brought him face to face with a harsh mistake. In his haste, he had harmed a trained service animal, an essential lifeline for a man who clearly depended on this gentle companion. Daniel's heart sank as he tried to apologize. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know," he said, his tone heavy with remorse. The man introduced himself as Robert. He spoke in measured, quiet tones that betrayed a lifetime of hardship and resilience. Once a dedicated firefighter for nearly 2 decades, Robert had devoted his life to saving others. However, everything changed 5 years earlier during a catastrophic blaze. In the chaos of a collapsing building, Robert narrowly escaped with his life, but at a terrible cost. He lost the use of his legs. In that dark moment, he believed that his life was irreparably shattered. Yet, as if guided by fate, Scout had come into his life 2 years after the incident, a small, abandoned puppy who had once been fearful of every human touch. Over time, the dog grew into an unwavering companion, not only performing daily tasks like fetching items and opening doors, but, more importantly, reviving Robert's spirit. Scout had become a symbol of hope and a reminder that even in the depths of despair, healing was possible. As Daniels knelt beside Robert and the injured dog, the officer's earlier resolve melted into empathy. "I'm truly sorry," he repeated quietly. "I acted without thinking." Robert managed a faint smile, though his eyes remained heavy with sadness. "Most people never look past a stray's appearance," he said softly, "but Scout is so much more than that to me." There was a pause, filled only by the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the town. It was then that Robert's voice took on a mysterious, almost hesitant quality. "I'm waiting for someone," he confided, his gaze distant yet resolute. Daniels, now even more intrigued, pressed gently. "Family?" "No," Robert replied with a subtle shake of his head. "I'm waiting for someone I've never met before." A quiet determination seemed to ripple through Robert as he continued his story. A few weeks earlier, he had received an unexpected call from a friend at the local animal shelter. They had taken in another stray, a dog that looked remarkably like Scout. This other dog, with similar scars and a comparable build, led them to dig deeper. Their investigation revealed a horrifying truth. Both dogs had once been part of an illegal fighting ring. In that brutal underworld, Scout had managed to escape during a raid, while the other had suffered severely, emerging malnourished and traumatized. What made the discovery even more chilling was the sight of a collar on the other dog, an address that led directly to the man who had run the ring. However, when authorities later investigated that address, They found the property abandoned, the mastermind having fled without a trace. Robert's voice grew firm and resolute as he recounted the tale. I came here because someone mentioned that the man behind this operation might still have connections in the area. I'm not looking for traditional justice, he explained, but I need answers. I need to know how Scout ended up in that hellish place, and why anyone would think it acceptable to abuse animals in such a way. Daniels, deeply moved by the story and the determination in Robert's eyes, cautioned, "You do realize this could be dangerous, don't you?" Robert's expression remained unyielding. "Danger doesn't scare me anymore," he replied evenly. "After everything I've lost, all that remains is the truth. Every threat, every obstacle, it's all just background noise compared to what matters." Before Daniels could fully absorb the gravity of Robert's words, the sound of approaching footsteps cut through the evening calm. A disheveled man in ragged clothes emerged from the shadows. His gait was hesitant, his eyes darting nervously between Robert, Scout, and the officer. "What do you want here?" the man demanded in a rough, wary voice, his tone betraying a mixture of fear and defiance. Robert straightened in his wheelchair, his voice steady despite the tension. "I'm looking for answers," he said firmly. "You were involved with the people who did this to Scout. I need to know why." The stranger's face contorted with a mixture of regret and apprehension. I used to work for them," he admitted slowly. "I got out when I realized what I was part of. I didn't want to be involved anymore." His eyes shifted anxiously, and after a pause, he revealed more. "They're not just running dog fights, you know. It's a larger operation, animal trafficking, smuggling them across state lines. Scout was probably meant to be sold to someone with more money. And as for where they are now, I believe they operated out of a warehouse on the edge of town. They used it as a base. They might still be there." Daniels exchanged a determined glance with Robert. Without hesitation, he reached for his radio and called for backup. "Stay back, Robert," he instructed firmly, though his tone conveyed that he wouldn't leave Robert's side entirely. "I'm on it," Robert nodded, adding, "I'm not planning to storm the place on my own. I'm here to help in any way I can." Soon, Daniel's unit arrived, and together with Robert and Scout, they made their way to the desolate warehouse district. The setting could have been lifted from a film of urban decay. Broken streetlights cast long, eerie shadows over cracked pavement, and in the distance, the hulking silhouette of an abandoned warehouse loomed ominously against the night sky. Daniels parked the patrol car at a safe distance, the headlights switched off to avoid drawing any unnecessary attention. After a brief, determined exchange of words, the officers split into teams to cover the perimeter of the warehouse. Scout, now noticeably alert with his ears pricked and nose twitching, led them to a side entrance. A rusted metal door left slightly ajar. Daniels, his heart pounding in anticipation, motioned for one of the officers to join him as he slowly pushed open the door. The creak echoed through the silent interior, and the beam of Daniel's flashlight revealed rows of metal cages lined up against the walls. Most of the cages were empty, but several contained frightened animals. Dogs, cats, and even exotic birds whose eyes, wide with terror, reflected the harsh light. "Dispatch, this is Officer Daniels. We have evidence of animal trafficking here," he announced in a clear, controlled voice. "Requesting animal control and additional units immediately." The seriousness of his tone left no doubt about the gravity of the situation. Muffled voices drifted from an adjacent room. Daniels signaled for absolute silence as he approached a closed door, pressing his ear to it. Inside, one gruff voice said, "They're on to us. We need to move the rest of the stock tonight," while another, more frantic voice replied, "There's no time. The roads are being watched." With a determined nod, Daniels signaled his team into action. He turned to Robert, whispering, "Stay back and let us handle this." Within moments, the officers burst into the room with swift precision. One of the suspects made a desperate dash toward a back exit, but Scout lunged forward, barking loudly and blocking the man's path. Robert's commanding voice rang out, "Down, Scout!" and the dog immediately obeyed, returning to a controlled stance. The situation was quickly brought under control. Suspects were handcuffed and the room was secured. Daniels later commended Robert, saying, "You and Scout were absolutely indispensable tonight. That door might never have been found without his keen instincts. Robert, though humbled by the praise, only smiled quietly. "Sometimes I think he's even smarter than I am," he murmured. Shortly after, Animal Control arrived to evaluate and transport the rescued animals. As Daniel surveyed the scene, he couldn't help but reflect, "We save these animals from one nightmare, only to be met with another when it comes to finding them proper care and shelter." Robert's expression darkened as he considered the systemic issues. "They deserve more than just temporary fixes," he stated firmly. "These animals deserve real homes, a chance to heal and live with dignity." After the chaotic night drew to a close, the following morning dawned with a quiet promise. Robert's modest property, though far from perfect, was where he decided to act on his newfound resolve. On a small plot of land stood a rundown barn and a few empty fields that, in time, would be transformed into a sanctuary for rescued animals. In the soft morning light, Robert studied a crude blueprint sketched on a scrap of paper, his first step toward realizing a vision built on compassion and second chances. Scout, ever the vigilant companion, lay close by, his eyes reflecting both loyalty and determination. "All right, boy," Robert murmured as he gently stroked Scout's fur. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us." That same day, Monica arrived with a transport van carrying 6 dogs in various states of neglect. Their appearances were heartbreaking: matted fur, visible ribs, and eyes that spoke of untold suffering. With a clipboard in hand and an expression that balanced cautious hope with concern, she asked, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Robert's answer was immediate and unwavering: "They deserve a chance." As the animals were carefully unloaded, one scrappy terrier in particular caught Scout's attention. At first, the terrier emitted a defensive growl, its body tense and alert. But when Scout approached slowly, the terrier's posture softened. It sniffed Scout cautiously, its wariness giving way to a quiet acceptance. "Looks like you've already got a helper there," Monica observed with a small, encouraging smile. Robert nodded, his heart lifting at the possibility that if Scout could overcome his past, then perhaps this little terrier, too, could find hope. Later that afternoon, while Robert was busy organizing supplies inside the barn, Officer Daniels pulled up in his patrol car. In one hand he carried a toolbox and in the other, a bag of dog food, both small symbols of the support he was willing to offer. "Figured you might need some help," Daniels said with a teasing grin as he stepped out of the car. Robert laughed, replying, "I never pegged you as the handyman type." Daniels chuckled in return, "Well, I do know how to follow instructions, and someone's got to keep an eye on you too." Monica then took charge of explaining the essentials. Together, they worked to set up makeshift kennels in the old barn. They arranged clean bedding, secured sturdy fencing, and filled every bowl with fresh water. All the while, the rescued dogs watched with a mixture of caution and curiosity. For Robert, the reality of the task was daunting. His heart ached at the thought that despite his deep desire to save every animal, the limitations of resources and a crumbling barn meant that every rescue demanded immense sacrifice and effort. As evening approached, exhaustion mixed with a quiet sense of achievement. Robert rested on a bale of hay, his head bowed, while Scout lay loyally at his feet. Monica sat nearby, her voice soft as she offered words of encouragement. "It's perfectly normal to feel overwhelmed," she said. "Not many would even attempt what you're doing here." Robert's voice, though tired, held a quiet determination. "If I give up now, what happens to these animals?" he asked. "You may not be able to save every dog," Monica replied gently, "but for those you help, it means everything." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion at the barn door. A lanky mutt with a reddish coat had managed to escape from its enclosure and was darting toward the road. Scout immediately sprang into action, barking softly but firmly to herd the stray back inside. Watching Scout's protective behavior, Robert muttered, "This fight is only going to get uglier." Monica's eyes hardened with resolve. "Then we fight back, with the truth," she declared. "I'll handle the media so people see the real story behind what we're doing here." In the days that followed, the shelter began to draw attention, both positive and negative. Monica received phone calls from local officials and community members who were not entirely supportive of the rescue efforts. Some longtime residents complained about the increased number of animals, fearing noise, disease, and a decline in property values. One local newspaper even ran a headline reading, "Local man's dog shelter sparks controversy," accompanied by anonymous quotes decrying Robert's work. Despite these challenges, Robert's resolve did not waver. "Let them come," he said determinedly. "I'll handle it." Officer Daniels added his support. "You've faced tougher challenges before. You've got what it takes to see this through." Then, one afternoon, a sleek black SUV pulled up, and a middle-aged woman stepped out. She introduced herself as Officer Stevens from Animal Control, her tone professional but cool. "We've received several complaints about the number of animals on your property," she said, her eyes scanning the shelter. "I'm here to ensure that everything is up to code." Robert welcomed her for an inspection, confident that they had followed all guidelines. After a thorough review of the kennels and a careful look at the records, Stevens nodded. "Your setup is adequate for now," she said, "but I'll need a detailed long-term plan if you intend to keep this many animals." With that, she returned to her vehicle, leaving Robert both frustrated and resolved. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and Robert was closing up the barn, Scout began pacing nervously near the back door. Following the dog's alert gaze, Robert discovered a crumpled note wedged under the door frame. Unfolding it, he read the hastily scrawled message, "Leave while you still can. Next time it won't just be words." The threat stung deeply, yet instead of succumbing to fear, Robert felt a surge of determination. "They're trying to scare us, Scout," he whispered, tightening his grip on the note. Monica, always the pragmatic optimist, quickly suggested a plan to reclaim the narrative. "Let's host a community event, a dog adoption fair," she proposed. "We'll invite local businesses, law enforcement, media, and the community at large. When people see the good work we're doing here, it will be much harder for anyone to spread lies." Robert hesitated for just a moment before replying, "I won't let fear stop us." And so, preparations began in earnest. In the days leading up to the event, volunteers from all corners of the community helped set up tables with adoption forms, informational pamphlets, and merchandise to raise funds. Local businesses donated supplies, and soon the once quiet shelter buzzed with activity and hope. Scout, now proudly sporting a bandana emblazoned with the message, "Adopt, don't shop," greeted visitors at the entrance with a gentle wag of his tail. Families, neighbors, and even Officer Daniels, with his wife and children in tow, turned out in support. "This place looks fantastic," Daniels remarked warmly, clapping Robert on the shoulder. Yet, not everyone was in favor of the shelter's growing influence. A group of local teenagers, emboldened by long-standing prejudice, defaced the freshly painted fence with graffiti reading, "No dogs here." Scout's sharp bark quickly sent the teens scurrying back into the woods. Robert, ever vigilant, snapped a photo of the vandalism, a record of the challenge he faced. His voice, filled with quiet fury, promised, "We'll fight back with the truth." Monica immediately began coordinating a media campaign to counteract the negative narrative, reaching out to local news outlets to share the real story of the shelter. The following morning, Monica set up a live stream from the barn. With a camera carefully positioned to capture every detail, Robert stood before the lens, flanked by Scout and several healthy, happy dogs. "Good morning," he began with calm resolve. "I'm Robert, and this is our shelter. Recently, false accusations have been made against us claiming neglect, but I'm here to show you the truth." The camera panned over the clean kennels, fresh water stations, and contented animals, while supportive comments and donations began to pour in as viewers saw the real face of the shelter. Despite the positive response, the threats did not cease. Later that evening, as Robert locked up the barn, he found another note with a similar message of intimidation. The persistence of these threats only strengthened his resolve. Alongside Monica, he organized a town meeting to publicly refute the lies and present the shelter's achievements. In the days leading up to the meeting, they compiled detailed records, adoption statistics, financial receipts, testimonials from grateful families, and meticulously prepared expense reports. Local media were invited to cover the event, ensuring that the community would hear the truth directly from those involved. On the day of the town meeting, the local town hall was packed with community members. Supporters held signs and banners in favor of the shelter, while a smaller but vocal group, led by the controversial Mr. Carter, stood near the back. Mr. Carter, known for his opposition to stray animals, took the stage first. His presentation featured a distorted slideshow of misleading statistics and manipulated images, designed to portray the shelter as a dangerous liability to the neighborhood. Anonymous quotes filled the presentation, warning of noise, disease, and plummeting property values. When it was finally Robert's turn, his heart pounded with both nervousness and determination. Looking out at the crowd of faces, families who had adopted dogs, volunteers who had given their time, and even Officer Daniels offering an encouraging nod, Robert took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Good evening," he began, his voice clear and unwavering. "I'm not here to attack anyone. I'm here to share the truth." With measured confidence, he displayed spreadsheets and receipts that detailed every donation and expense. He shared vibrant photographs of dogs thriving in their new homes and played a heartfelt video montage of families describing how their rescued pets had transformed their lives. "This is about more than numbers," he declared. "It's about community, compassion, and second chances." Scout, for example, now serves as a therapy dog in schools and hospitals, helping children overcome their fears. The impact of his words was immediate. As Robert spoke, the energy in the room shifted. Skeptical expressions softened into nods of approval, and even some of Mr. Carter's supporters lowered their placards in silent acknowledgement. A young girl named Lucy stepped forward, clutching a framed photograph of a golden retriever she had adopted from the shelter. "This is Lucy," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I wouldn't be here without my best friend, a dog from the shelter, who helped me overcome my fears." Her testimony, along with that of several others, transformed the meeting into a celebration of the shelter's positive impact. When the final vote was taken, overwhelming support ensured that the shelter would remain open. After the meeting, as community members began to disperse with words of encouragement, Robert and Monica gathered their materials in the quiet aftermath. Officer Daniels approached, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "You did it, Robert," he said warmly. "You showed them the truth." Later that night, as Robert locked up the barn, Scout patted over and nudged his hand with gentle affection. "We did good, didn't we, boy?" Robert whispered, gazing up at the starlit sky with renewed hope and determination. In the weeks and months that followed, the shelter experienced a remarkable turnaround. Donations began to pour in from all corners of the community. More volunteers stepped forward to help, and local newspapers ran follow-up stories praising the shelter's transformative work. Even neighbors who had once criticized the project now came by to offer supplies or simply to share a kind word. Officer Daniels, who had once mistakenly sprayed Scout with pepper spray, became a frequent visitor, often accompanied by his own family, who enjoyed interacting with the rescued dogs. One bright afternoon, as Robert was managing the day-to-day operations of the shelter, he received an unexpected proposal from a local business consortium. The group offered to fund an expansion of the shelter, a new wing dedicated to training therapy dogs, inspired by Scout's incredible story. Overwhelmed with pride and emotion, Robert looked at Scout, who sat loyally by his side, and said, "Looks like you're going to have some company." The prospect of expanding the shelter not only buoyed Robert's spirits but also validated every hardship he had endured. The transformation of the shelter extended far beyond the physical space. Robert and Monica soon launched a series of community outreach programs, designed to educate local children about proper animal care and the importance of kindness and compassion. Scout, with his gentle demeanor and unwavering loyalty, became the face of these programs, visiting schools, hospitals, and community centers to spread joy and hope. At an adoption event held in the local park, a young boy timidly approached Scout with a mix of curiosity and hesitation. "Is he the dog from the story?" the boy asked. "Sure is," Robert replied warmly as he knelt beside Scout. "Would you like to meet him?" The boy gently patted Scout's head and whispered, "I want to help dogs like him someday." In that moment, Robert realized that the shelter's impact reached far beyond rescuing animals. It inspired future generations to believe in the power of kindness. Though challenges still arose, occasional threats, acts of vandalism, and attempts at intimidation, the community's unwavering support allowed the shelter to not only survive but thrive. Every time a new obstacle emerged, Robert, Monica, and the entire team rallied together to overcome it. When Officer Daniels discreetly uncovered that a group of local opponents, led by Mr. Carter and even supported by some influential neighbors, had been orchestrating harassment campaigns and hiring private security to intimidate the shelter, Robert took decisive action. He personally visited one of the key adversaries, standing firmly before Mr. Carter's door with Scout at his side. "I know you've been trying to shut us down," Robert stated evenly. "Either you support what we're doing or leave us alone. We have the community behind us." The flicker of uncertainty in Mr. Carter's eyes was enough to confirm that the truth was beginning to prevail. Back at the shelter, the once crumbling barn had been transformed into a thriving haven for animals. Every rescued dog, every volunteer, and every donation contributed to a mission that went far beyond mere animal rescue. It was a movement built on compassion, resilience, and hope. Late at night, as Robert locked up the barn and watched Scout curl up contentedly, he often reflected on the incredible journey they had embarked upon. "We'll keep going," he promised softly, "for every animal that needs a second chance and every person who needs to see what love can do." The journey had been long and fraught with hardship, but in the end, the shelter had become a beacon of hope for the entire community. Families found solace and joy in adopting rescued dogs, volunteers discovered purpose in their selfless work, and local businesses began to see the value in investing in compassion. The story that began with a mistaken use of pepper spray had transformed into a powerful testament to how empathy and determination can change lives. For Robert, the bond he shared with Scout was nothing short of miraculous. That once ignored stray had not only saved him from despair but had given him the strength to rebuild his life and extend that gift to every animal in need. As the shelter continued to expand its reach, the legacy of one loyal dog inspired countless others to believe in second chances. Every rescued animal, every successful adoption, and every community event echoed the message that compassion can overcome prejudice, and that the smallest act of kindness can truly change the world. As the community gathered time and again at the shelter for adoption fairs, educational events, and celebrations of life, Robert looked at Scout with quiet gratitude. "We did it, boy," he said softly. "We showed them what love can do." And with that, the future shone brightly with promise. With renewed determination and the unwavering support of an entire community, Robert, Monica, Officer Daniels, and Scout pressed forward into tomorrow. A tomorrow filled with hope, compassion, and endless possibilities for healing. Each day, as the shelter continued to grow and transform lives, the legacy of that fateful night on Town Square lived on, proving that even in the face of adversity, love and determination could light the way.